Concussion, the invisible injury. No one sees the heartache, the frustration, the effort it takes to protect our relationship every day. We are Dean and Lori. Join us on the Concussion Code, and we will help you learn to love again. Welcome to the Concussion Code. We have come firsthand to share with you what our life has been in the last 26 months. We're Dean and Lori, and we have been on a journey of a lifetime that we never ever anticipated was going to be our journey. This is an invisible one, and no one gets to see the heartache, the frustration, and the effort that it has taken to protect our relationship every single day. Dean is an amazing man, a man that is full of wisdom, leadership, that I have nothing but respect for. I'm a professional therapist. I teach communication and relationship building skills, and it has taken every ounce of who we are to build ourselves up and to protect our relationship through these times, through these challenges, through these heartaches. There's been times where he has pushed me away. There has been times where I have pulled away. But we are Dean and Lori, and we know that the greatest legacy that we have in our life is our marriage, and it is not an option. Love never fails, and character never quits.
26 months ago, our life changed forever. And I know for myself, looking back at that day and having a catastrophic bobcat accident, rolling down a embankment and believing I had my neck broke and the bobcat was on fire, and I had lots of decisions to make. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my story. Anyone that's listening to this probably has their own story. And so no two stories are the same. But that day, when I rolled the bobcat at a resort, which is 3.5 hours away from a major center, we had to wait for the ambulance. We had to get out of the skid steer, get back to the resort, wondering if I had a broken neck the whole time. And got back to the resort. The ambulance came about 45 minutes later. The RCMP police were there, and everybody was just trying to stabilize me. And we did that for probably about an hour, got stabilized, and I went to my first hospital. And they looked at me and said, you know what, we're not going to touch you. We're going to send you to another hospital. And then I went to the Lloydminster Hospital, where they looked at me and they didn't quite know what to do, but they did a CAT scan, and they found out to our joy that it wasn't broken. And so I didn't have to go to Edmonton for an operation, which they had already booked. So all that happened that day. When I woke up that morning, that wasn't in the plans. It was just to go out and have a normal day's work. And that's when everything turned upside down. And that's when our journey through all this, that's when it started. I know when I left the hospital in Lloydminster to come back to our home in Sherwood Park, Lori had no idea how she was even going to physically handle me. I'm not a little guy. I'm 6'2", 225 pounds. And she had a panicked look on her face. And so we headed home, which was about a 2-hour drive from Lloyd back to our house in Sherwood Park, where the whole time was pretty quiet. I was already had high anxiety. I was in a lot of pain. They'd given me some meds. I had a neck collar on, and I was worried that how am I going to get into the house too? So I guess for us, when we got home, we had a deep breath, and our daughter and son both showed up to help us into the house, and that was a great relief for Lori. But for me, I knew that I was already understood I was going to have a long-term injury to deal with. And where do you begin? So anxiety builds up. I think a lot of people look after the physical part of their injury, but they don't look after the emotional part of their injury, and they don't feel in control. And I certainly wasn't in control. Lori certainly wasn't in control. And for the first number of weeks, I basically slept in our recliner chair in our kitchen area. And I would sleep for 15, 20 minutes and be up for an hour, and sleep 15, 20 minutes and be up for an hour, and trying to figure out where we were at. What do we do next? I have a great family doctor that has been my doctor for 20 plus years, and he was a great help. I had to go through the stuff of getting workers' comp. I had to go through the stuff of getting everything registered, and with no energy, it was everything was a huge, huge chore.
Before we go any deeper into our journey, I want to take a moment to remind you to subscribe to our channel. This is an amazing journey of discovery. We are real people sharing real challenges, so subscribe and don't miss out on our real solutions. Click now.
Just getting to the doctors for an appointment was a big chore. I wasn't supposed to be driving, but I still drove, even though I knew I shouldn't have been driving. But I'd go to the doctor and I'd say, like, what's the procedure? What are we going to do next? And for him, being a friend and a family doctor, he said, well, we'll get you into some physio, and we'll get you into some type of an exercise plan through the physio. So that's where we first started. And I went and I did that, and that was the start of trying to get this thing fixed. But like I said earlier, there's a physical side which is easy to focus on. The emotional side isn't as easy to focus on. And I knew I was grumpy. I knew that I was short because of a couple of things, pain and also feeling out of control, and knowing that my income would totally change. There would be money situations arise out of it, and there would also be emotional things between Lori and I that would arise out of it. So all that stuff weighs on you, and I know if you're going through it, I know how you feel. I felt the same way, but 26 months later, I can tell you it's a lot better than it was when we began. It was a hopeless feeling that you weren't going to ever get out of this mess, that you were never going to be able to do the things you did before, and very frustrated, super frustrated. And I know that to Lori, I frustrated her. To my kids, I frustrated them. To my grandkids, I frustrated them. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't understand the things that I was going through, and in turn, because you're a family, everybody's going through it. So I think that's really where we started, and over the coming podcasts, we'll go a little more in depth into some of the things we did both physically and emotionally, because I believe that the emotional part of a concussion or concussions, and you'll hear that I've had more than one, have a huge impact emotionally on your whole family, not just you.
Dean and I are known for the strength of our marriage. It has been a focal point of our entire life. We made decisions before we were married, and we planned our 25th anniversary before we were married. We have absolutely committed every part of who we are to being happy and never settling for something. We made a decision before we were married that we would never go to bed angry or empty. And I have to be honest that it was after the concussions that I started going to bed empty over and over and over and over again. I waited for Dean to notice how empty I was, how many times he was pushing me away, how he was attempting to handle his issues solo. And my temperament needs to know that we're in it together and that we can get through anything together. But his temperament needed to protect me, to try and handle things on his own so that he could try and do the very best. His anger wasn't just it was never really at me. It seemed like I felt the brunt of it, but it was never really about me. He was so mad at himself. He was just absolutely furious that he, with all of his experience driving Bobcat and working equipment, with being as resourceful as he is, he just could not believe that he would have a situation that is preventable happen to us that could potentially take out our livelihood, our dreams, our goals, and then once we realized the impact it was going to have on our relationship, how powerful it was for us to see that a marriage that had been strengthened over time, had been intentional and purposeful in every communication, in every decision, could potentially be at risk because of a bobcat accident triggering a concussion. What's come to be is we know that we are not alone. We know the frequency that people come up to Dean and share with him the number of times that they've experienced concussion. We know that there is such a thing as post-concussion syndrome, and it changes you. It changes the way that people see you, and it changes the way that you interact with the world. And what we want to do here on the Concussion Code is we want to help you understand those changes. We want to remind you and show you the character of who you are so that we can be very mindful that the person that you've become out of fear, anger, is not the character of the man that you are. And as a woman, I want to speak to you kindly, compassionately, but sternly. You will have to put some of your needs aside temporarily so that he can focus on getting healthy enough and well enough to come back to you. And I promise you, with the skills that we are going to teach you, with the materials that we're going to share with you, I promise you, you will learn to love again, and it will be richer, deeper, and more meaningful than ever before. We are deeply and richly blessed, but we are also married with intention, purpose, and for life. We are Dean and Lori on the Concussion Code. Till next time.